Who gave you this number? That was the reply I got 11 seconds after accidentally texting a stranger. I miss you. I stared at my phone. I had meant to send those 3 humiliating words to Ethan, the man I'd spent 3 months teaching myself not to call. Instead, one wrong digit had delivered them somewhere else. My thumb moved quickly. Sorry, wrong number. The answer appeared almost immediately. That wasn't my question. I sat straighter on my couch. Rain tapped against my apartment window, but suddenly it was the silence inside that bothered me. Nobody gave it to me. I typed. I entered 1 digit wrong. 3 dots appeared. Vanished. Then nothing. Good, I thought. Conversation over. I had no idea that 12 miles away, 5 men were staring at the same message. Adrian Cole didn't receive accidents on that phone. The number was private. 5 people had it. 5 men he trusted enough to know where his shipments moved before they disappeared into Chicago. And during the previous 6 weeks, 2 of those shipments had vanished. Someone inside his organization was selling information. So when his phone lit up during a closed-door meeting with 3 innocent words, I miss you, Adrian didn't see loneliness. He saw a breach. Trace it, he told Daniel Cross. Daniel glanced at the screen. The woman. The number. That was Adrian Cole, 35. Cold enough that men twice his age stopped talking when he entered a room. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. Daniel returned 8 minutes later. Claire Bennett, 27. Manager at Bell & Hart Books. No criminal record. Nothing unusual. Adrian rotated the black signet ring on his finger once. Why did she text me? She says wrong number. I know what she says. Daniel placed another page on the table. She probably isn't lying. Adrian looked up. The number she intended to text belongs to Ethan Parker. 1 digit different from yours. For the first time, Adrian's expression shifted. Barely. Who is Parker? Daniel checked the file. Financial analyst. Northline Logistics. The room changed. One of the men at the table stopped breathing loudly enough for everyone to notice. Northline. The company had appeared twice in Adrian's investigation, both times near compromised shipping routes. Where is Parker now? Checking. Adrian looked again at my photograph. A bookstore employee. An ordinary apartment. An ordinary life. Nothing about me belonged on his table. Do not approach her, he said. Daniel nodded. Watch Parker. Meanwhile, I was still sitting on my couch, wondering why a wrong number stranger had sounded more offended by my mistake than Ethan had ever sounded about losing me. I deleted the conversation. Or tried to. My finger hovered over the screen. Then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. For one ridiculous second, my heart jumped. But the message wasn't from him. It was Ethan. After 3 months of silence. Claire, we need to talk. I stared at the words. Another message arrived. Don't tell anyone I contacted you. My stomach tightened. Across Chicago, Daniel Cross entered Adrian's office carrying a second file. This time he locked the door behind him. Boss. Adrian raised his eyes. Daniel placed Ethan Parker's photograph beside mine. The wrong number may have been an accident. Adrian studied the 2 photographs. But, Daniel exhaled. The man she meant to text isn't. Don't tell anyone I contacted you. I read Ethan's message 3 times before my phone rang. His name flashed across the screen. I answered. Ethan. Nothing. Just breathing. Then the call ended. I tried again. Straight to voicemail. By morning, Ethan had disappeared. Northline Logistics claimed he hadn't reported for work. His apartment manager hadn't seen him. Even his social media accounts had gone silent. I told myself it wasn't my problem. Then the unknown number texted me. Does Ethan still have access to your apartment? My stomach dropped. How do you know his name? No answer. I typed again. Who are you? The reply came seconds later. Someone telling you to change your locks tonight. I stared at it, anger cutting through my fear. You investigated me? Yes. At least he didn't lie. Stay away from me. I blocked him. For 8 hours, nothing happened. That almost convinced me I'd overreacted. Then I closed Bell & Hart Books at 9:40 that night. The store was empty except for the soft hum of the old heating system. I carried the register drawer toward the office and stopped. The door was open. I always locked it. Hello. Silence. I stepped inside. My desk drawers had been pulled out. Receipts covered the floor. The cabinet beside the wall stood open. My laptop was still there. So was the cash envelope. Nothing valuable was missing. Then I saw the bottom drawer. Months ago, Ethan had left an old USB drive there after using my office computer. I'd forgotten about it. The drawer was empty. Someone hadn't come for money. They had come looking for something. I called the police. They took a report, checked the back entrance, and told me there wasn't enough evidence to know whether the break-in had anything to do with Ethan. By 10:30, I was alone outside beneath the bookstore awning. Rain glazed the street. That was when I noticed the gray sedan, parked across from me, engine running. The same car I'd seen outside that morning. My hands went cold. I unblocked the number. What did Ethan do? My phone rang instantly. Unknown number. I answered. What did he do? A man's voice reached me for the first time. Low. Controlled. Where are you? That's not an answer. Claire. Hearing my name from him made me freeze. Where are you? Work. Stay inside. I looked across the street. The sedan pulled away. I think they're leaving. They aren't. How could you possibly know that? A pause. Then, because another car just turned toward your apartment. My breath stopped. Across the city, Adrian Cole stood before a wall of surveillance feeds, while Daniel cross-tracked 2 Moretti vehicles. Adrian wasn't guessing. He'd spent 48 hours mapping Ethan Parker's contacts. Northline had moved 3 containers through a Moretti-controlled terminal. Now Moretti men were searching Claire's life. Do not engage unless necessary, Adrian ordered. I want to know what they're looking for. Daniel glanced at him. And Claire. Adrian's eyes stayed on the screen. Move her. 20 minutes later, a black SUV collected me from behind the bookstore. I should have refused. Instead, I remembered my open desk. My empty drawer. My apartment. I got in. They took me to a hotel downtown and escorted me into a private elevator. The doors opened on the 23rd floor. One man was waiting inside. Tall. Black coat. Dark hair. Gray eyes that seemed to measure everything before deciding whether it mattered. He looked at me as if we had already been arguing for days. Claire Bennett. I swallowed. Mr. Wrong Number? Not even a smile. Adrian Cole. I knew that name. Everyone in Chicago did. And suddenly, getting into that SUV felt like the second wrong decision I'd made that week. If you know who I am, you know why you should leave. Adrian Cole said it without moving toward me. That was the strange part. A man whose name was spoken like a warning had just given me permission to walk away. I looked toward the elevator. Then why bring me here? Because someone searched your workplace tonight. Someone else went to your apartment. Because of Ethan? Yes. Where is he? I don't know. His answer came too quickly to be theatrical. I hated that I believed him. Adrian motioned toward a table covered with photographs. My bookstore. My apartment building. The gray sedan. 2 men entering through my building's service door. One photograph showed the driver. Moretti, Adrian said. What does that mean? A family you don't want knowing your name. My throat tightened. You're talking about organized crime. I'm talking about why you're still here. I looked at him. And what are you? His gray eyes never shifted. The reason they haven't come through that door. It should have sounded arrogant. Instead, it sounded factual. I hated that more. Adrian explained only what he believed I needed to know. Ethan worked for Northline Logistics. Northline had moved containers through terminals connected to the Moretti family. Information had been stolen from Adrian's organization. Shipments had been intercepted. People inside his world were feeding someone information. And you think Ethan did it? I think Ethan touched something he shouldn't have. And me? I haven't decided. Anger replaced fear. You investigated me because I sent a stupid text. I investigated you because you reached a number 5 people are supposed to have, while someone inside my organization is selling secrets. I froze. That explained his first reply. Who gave you this number? The message had never intrigued him. It had alarmed him. So you thought I was part of it? Yes. At least you're consistent. With what? Being incredibly unpleasant. Something almost changed in his expression. Almost. Then he said, You can leave. I stared at him. No guard stopping me. No mysterious mafia rule. Claire. His voice dropped. If I wanted you imprisoned, you wouldn't need to ask. My pulse jumped. He noticed. His jaw tightened slightly. That was badly phrased. Despite everything, a laugh escaped me. For 1 second, the terrifying Adrian Cole looked almost human. Then it vanished. I left. One of his cars followed at a distance, but nobody stopped me from entering my apartment. Inside, nothing looked disturbed. Until I saw my laptop. Ethan had borrowed it repeatedly before we broke up, always claiming his work computer was being repaired. A memory surfaced. 2 months ago, I'd walked into the bedroom and found him shutting my laptop too quickly. What are you hiding? Your birthday present. I'd believed him. God. The next morning, I took the laptop to Noah, the technician who maintained Bell and Hart's ancient computers. 20 minutes later, he frowned. Claire, did you create an encrypted partition? Eh, what? His fingers moved across the keyboard. There's hidden storage on this drive. The screen suddenly flashed. Delete request received. What's happening? Someone's trying to wipe it remotely. Noah yanked the network cable. The progress bar stopped. 7%. My phone rang. Adrian. I answered without greeting. Someone just tried to erase my laptop. Silence. Then his voice changed. Not louder. Colder. Don't touch anything. Daniel arrived 12 minutes later with forensic equipment. Hours passed before one damaged folder finally opened. Cicero_C17. Adrian stared at the file name. For the first time since meeting him, I watched all warmth leave his face. What is it? He looked at me. A route 4 people knew. My stomach turned. What happened to it? It was intercepted 6 weeks ago. I stared at Ethan's hidden files. Then at Adrian. What happens when Moretti realizes I still have this? Adrian's gaze settled on me. They already have. Ethan didn't hide one secret on my laptop. He hid a map to someone else's betrayal. Adrian moved me before sunrise. Not to a hotel this time. To a penthouse above the river where the elevator required 2 separate codes, and every window looked down on Chicago like the city belonged to the man standing beside me. This isn't optional, is it? I asked. Your safety isn't. My freedom. His eyes met mine. That distinction mattered. He gave me a bedroom with its own lock and told everyone on the floor the same thing. Nobody entered without my permission. Then Adrian disappeared into his war. For the next 12 hours, I barely saw him. But I saw what being Adrian Cole meant. Men arrived carrying sealed folders. Phones rang once and were answered immediately. 3 shipping routes were placed on his desk. Adrian altered one detail in each. Different departure times. Different loading gates. Different container numbers. Daniel understood first. You're feeding 3 versions of the same shipment. Adrian rotated his black signet ring. 1 version to each security group. A leak trap. A patient one. He wasn't hunting the Morettis. He was hunting whoever inside his own organization was opening the door for them. Meanwhile, Daniel's forensic team kept rebuilding Ethan's hidden partition. Every recovered timestamp made my stomach hurt. Tuesday, 11:43 p.m. Ethan had been at my apartment. Thursday, 2:16 a.m. He had slept beside me afterward. Saturday, 12:08 a.m. I remembered that night clearly. I had walked into the bedroom and found him closing my laptop. Your birthday present, he'd said. There had never been a birthday present. By evening, I couldn't stare at evidence anymore. I found Adrian alone at the dining table. You eat. When necessary. That might be the saddest answer I've ever heard. His eyes lifted. I ordered pasta from the kitchen and sat opposite him without asking. For 10 minutes, neither of us mentioned Ethan. It was almost peaceful. Then I asked, how do you stay this calm? I don't. You look calm. Looking angry gives people information. He took a sip of coffee. Anger is expensive. I don't spend it until I know what I'm buying. I laughed before I could stop myself. Adrian stared at me. What? Nothing. I just didn't expect the terrifying Mafia Boss to sound like an accountant. For half a second, his mouth almost curved. Then Daniel entered. Relief over. Route 2 moved. Adrian stood. Which group? Robert Kane's. One of Adrian's 3 false routes had been intercepted by Moretti surveillance less than 40 minutes after Kane received it. I understood. You found your traitor. No, Adrian's answer was immediate. Someone wants me to think I did. Daniel frowned. Adrian pointed at the report. Kane has controlled that port for 11 years. If he betrayed me, he wouldn't expose himself on the first test. He was right. The clue was too clean. Later, unable to sleep, I returned to the recovered files. Rows of meaningless names filled the screen. Then one file name stopped me. MV_0412. MV. My fingers went cold. I remembered Ethan standing on my balcony 2 months earlier, whispering angrily into his phone. I'd only heard one sentence. Marcus, I said I'm done. At the time, I'd assumed Marcus was someone from work. I found Adrian in his office. I know who Ethan was talking to. He went completely still. What name? Marcus. Silence. Daniel slowly looked at Adrian. I twisted my mother's silver ring. Who is Marcus? Adrian's face became colder than I had ever seen it. Marcus Vale. He closed the file. My consigliere. If Marcus Vale was the traitor, Adrian didn't want revenge. He wanted proof strong enough that nobody could question what came after. I stood across from Adrian's desk while Daniel closed the office door. How long have you known him? I asked. 15 years. Adrian didn't look angry. That frightened me more. Marcus had served Adrian's father. He had attended family funerals, negotiated wars, and helped Adrian take control of the syndicate. A man like that couldn't be condemned because I remembered one phone call. Verify everything, Adrian told Daniel. Quietly. And Marcus? Changes nothing. It changed everything. For 2 days, Adrian let Marcus attend meetings. Let him speak. Let him believe he was trusted. Meanwhile, Daniel examined financial records, burner numbers, security logs. Nothing. Marcus was impossibly clean. Maybe I remembered wrong. I whispered. Adrian looked up. You remembered what you heard. But if I'm wrong, then evidence will prove you wrong. Not fear. That night, Moretti made its next move. Not with bullets. With paperwork. Bell and Hart's landlord suddenly announced an inspection that could close the store. Our primary distributor suspended deliveries over an invented payment dispute. The bank reviewing our renewal called my boss about new concerns. 3 unrelated problems. Within 90 minutes. I knew they weren't unrelated. They're attacking the bookstore. Adrian stood at the window, phone against his ear. They're testing whether pressure on you moves me. Does it? His gaze found mine. Yes. The honesty caught me off guard. Then his voice became ice. But not the way they expect. He made 4 calls. No threats. No shouting. By midnight, the inspection had been postponed after the landlord's largest investor requested an audit. Our distributor discovered its error, and 2 more Moretti-controlled logistics companies lost access to terminals managed by coal allies. I stared at Adrian. What did you do? Answered. You could destroy people with phone calls. I prefer contracts. They leave fewer messes. The bookstore opened the next morning. That should have comforted me. Instead, I understood how much power he kept hidden behind silence. Later, I found him alone with untouched coffee. Did you trust Marcus? Adrian's fingers stopped against the cup. With my life. That sounds lonely. It wasn't. He looked toward Chicago beyond the glass. Until now. For one quiet second, he wasn't Adrian Cole, Mafia Boss. He was a man discovering that 15 years of loyalty might have been purchased by someone else. Then Daniel entered carrying a tablet. We cleared Kane. Adrian turned. The leaked route. His email was cloned. Access originated through an internal relay. My stomach tightened. Someone had deliberately made Robert Kane look guilty. Daniel continued. And whoever did it knew about your leak test. Adrian's expression hardened. That meant the traitor wasn't simply stealing information. He was watching Adrian investigate him. Daniel placed another report down. We recovered traffic from Ethan's burner. 1 recurring number. Never registered. But the connection pattern matches devices used near 3 meetings Marcus attended. Not proof, but closer. I remembered something else. Ethan was scared during that call. Both men looked at me. He said, Marcus. I said I'm done. Adrian's eyes narrowed. Not working for Marcus. Trying to stop. That changed Ethan from architect to intermediary. Daniel's phone buzzed. He read the message. His face tightened. Boss. What? We just intercepted a fresh transmission from inside the organization. Adrian slowly turned his black signet ring. Marcus. We can't prove the sender yet. Daniel swallowed. But whoever sent it included details from the false route operation. I looked between them. If Marcus knows you're hunting him, why hasn't he run? Adrian went still. Then I saw it. Not fear. Calculation. Because, he said quietly, he thinks he's still ahead of me. Adrian didn't tell me he was going to use my name as bait. I found out when Daniel said, if Moretti believes Claire decrypted the files, Marcus will have to move. The room went silent. I looked at Adrian. You told them I know everything? His jaw tightened. I allowed that information to circulate. That's a beautiful way of saying yes. Claire, no for days. Adrian had given me choices. My own room. My own lock. The right to leave. And then he had placed my name on his chessboard without asking. You gave me freedom inside this house, I said, then used my name outside it. His gray eyes held mine. He didn't defend himself. That almost made it worse. The leak is adapting, he said. I needed something valuable enough to force a mistake. I had Daniel watching every channel and 2 extraction plans in place. I convinced myself controlling the physical risk gave me the right to create the risk. It didn't. No. His answer came without hesitation. It didn't. So you made me valuable. You already are. The words landed harder than they should have. I hated that part of me wanted to hear more. Instead, I grabbed my coat. I'm leaving. Daniel shifted near the door. Adrian raised one hand. Daniel stopped. No argument. No order. Just that frightening silence Adrian used when controlling everything except what he actually wanted. Finally, he said, Daniel stays 2 blocks away. No, that isn't control. It feels like it. It's the price of the war I brought to your door. I stared at him. For once, Adrian Cole wasn't asking me to trust his power. He was admitting its consequences. 2 blocks, I said. He doesn't follow me inside anywhere. Agreed. I returned to my apartment before midnight. For the first time in days, there were no guards outside my bedroom. No encrypted files. No men speaking quietly behind closed doors. I should have felt free. Instead, the silence felt enormous. Across Chicago, Adrian's trap began working. The rumor moved through 3 carefully chosen channels. Claire Bennett had decrypted Ethan Parker's entire archive. 43 minutes later, a burner phone activated. Daniel traced it through 2 relays. The final signal touched a warehouse controlled by Moretti. Marcus had moved, but Adrian still refused to strike. Movement isn't proof, he said. Daniel stared at him. How much proof do you need? Enough that when I remove him, nobody asks whether I was wrong. That was the difference between anger and power. Adrian wasn't trying to punish Marcus. He was preparing to destroy his credibility before taking anything else. At 2:14 a.m., Daniel called me. We recovered something from Ethan's backup. I almost refused to listen. Then I heard Ethan's voice. Thin. Terrified. Claire doesn't know anything. Leave her out of this. My chest tightened. Marcus answered. Calm. Older. Then make sure she never learns whose laptop you used. I stopped breathing. Ethan hadn't chosen my laptop because it was convenient. He had used me as camouflage, but he had also tried to keep me out afterward. I had loved a man I apparently never truly understood. The recording continued. Ethan whispered, I'm done. Marcus laughed softly. You're done when I say you're done. The audio ended. I sat alone in the dark. My phone buzzed again. This time Adrian. I answered. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. I heard it, I said. I know. You were right about Ethan. That doesn't make what I did to you right. The admission hurt more than an excuse would have. Before I could answer, Daniel interrupted Adrian on the other end. His voice was urgent. Boss. Marcus just activated another burner. Adrian changed instantly. The softness disappeared. Destination? We traced a request for a private meeting. With Moretti? Yes. Where? A pause. Then Daniel said the 2 words that made my blood turn cold. Bell and Hart. My bookstore. If Marcus chose my bookstore because he thought Adrian loved me enough to become careless, he had made one fatal mistake. Adrian Cole became more dangerous when he had something to lose. Bell and Hart closed at 6 the next evening. Officially, an electrical fault had been discovered. Unofficially, Adrian had emptied the building without giving Marcus any reason to suspect he knew about the meeting. No employees, Adrian ordered. No civilians. I stood inside the office doorway. And me? You're leaving. No, his eyes turned to me. This isn't a negotiation. You don't know this building. I have blueprints. I almost laughed. Blueprints don't show what Mr. Hart sealed behind the basement shelves 15 years ago. That stopped him. I explained the old freight corridor beneath the bookstore. It had once connected deliveries to the alley behind the neighboring building. We used part of it for storage before the fire inspector ordered it closed. Daniel unfolded the building plan. No corridor. Exactly. Adrian studied me. A week earlier, he would have taken the information and given orders. This time he asked, may I use that? The question was small. What it meant wasn't. I nodded. Yes. Adrian immediately changed the operation. 2 men covered the hidden corridor. Daniel controlled the cameras. I was moved to a secured office across the street where I could watch the feeds. At 8:17, Marcus entered Bell and Hart. I recognized him instantly. Silver hair. Charcoal coat. The kind of face that looked trustworthy because it had practiced for decades. 5 minutes later, Vincent Moretti, the rival family's representative, arrived through the basement corridor. Marcus smiled. You chose the back entrance. You taught us never to trust the front. Daniel looked at Adrian. Recording. Adrian said nothing. Marcus began talking. Not confessing. Men like him didn't confess. They explained themselves because they believed history would eventually agree with them. Adrian is weakening the organization, Marcus said. Too many legitimate fronts. Too many restrictions. His father understood fear. Moretti poured himself a drink from the bottle Marcus had brought. And the stolen routes. Necessary pressure. My stomach turned. Cicero C. 17. Ethan. My laptop. All of it had been pressure. Marcus continued. Once the captains believe Adrian can't protect his own network, they'll want stronger leadership. There it was. Not greed. A coup. Marcus wasn't selling Adrian's empire. He was trying to inherit it. Adrian watched without blinking. But I saw his thumb pass once over his black signet ring. 15 years of loyalty dying on a security monitor. Then Moretti asked, what about the girl? Marcus smiled. Claire is useful because Adrian thinks she matters. Adrian's face became absolutely still. Daniel whispered, boss. Wait. That single word held the room. Marcus checked his watch. Your second team should be inside by now. Moretti frowned. Inside where? For the first time, Adrian leaned toward the monitor. Marcus continued. Cole's penthouse. My pulse stopped. They're going after Adrian's home? Daniel was already typing. Marcus shook his head on screen. The woman isn't there anymore. We don't need her. Then he smiled. We need the server. Daniel looked up sharply. The penthouse server contained financial trails, route records, internal communications, the evidence Adrian had been collecting against Marcus and Moretti. The bookstore wasn't the attack. It was theater. Marcus had deliberately chosen a place Adrian would flood with security because of me. He had used Adrian's feelings exactly the way Adrian had once used my name. A distraction. But the hidden freight corridor had given us one advantage Marcus had never planned for. Daniel had quietly placed a secondary tap on the line his men were using beneath the building. The moment Marcus triggered the penthouse operation, that tap captured the authentication handshake connecting his burner network to Moretti's team. For the first time, I wasn't simply the person Adrian had to protect. Something I knew about my own world had closed the gap in his. Adrian stood. No panic. No rage. Just calculation. Activate the penthouse contingency. Daniel looked at him. You expected this? I expected Marcus to attack whatever he thought I couldn't afford to lose. On the monitor, Marcus suddenly glanced toward one of the bookstore cameras, then smiled directly into it, as if he knew Adrian was watching. Adrian's voice went cold. The bookstore was never the target. He reached for his coat. It was the distraction. Marcus thought he had forced Adrian to choose between me and his empire. Adrian had already chosen 3 moves ago. The first Moretti man entered the penthouse server floor at 8:31. The server racks were running. The security door had been deliberately left vulnerable. Everything looked exactly as Marcus expected, except the data was worthless. 3 days earlier, after discovering that someone knew about his false route operation, Adrian had moved the real evidence to an offline vault. The penthouse system was a decoy, and every file Moretti copied carried a traceable signature. They took it, Daniel said, watching remotely. Adrian buttoned his coat. Good. I stared at him. You let them break in? I let them believe they did. That was when I finally understood Adrian Cole. His power wasn't the men surrounding him. It wasn't money. It wasn't fear. It was patience. Marcus had spent 15 years believing he knew how Adrian thought. Tonight, Adrian was letting that arrogance destroy him. At bell and heart, the doors locked. Marcus turned as Adrian entered through the front. 3 Cole captains followed. Robert Kane was one of them. Marcus's expression barely changed. Adrian. Marcus. No shouting. No weapons raised. Just 2 men standing between shelves of books while 15 years of loyalty collapsed around them. Marcus looked at me through the office camera. So she really did make you weak. Adrian didn't even glance toward the screen. Daniel. A recording played. Marcus's voice filled the bookstore. Stolen routes. Moretti. His plan to undermine Adrian. Then Daniel placed bank transfers, burner phone metadata, cloned email records, and the false route reports on the table. Robert Kane stepped forward. You framed me. Marcus looked around. For the first time, confidence cracked. Moretti reached for his phone. Adrian stopped him with 3 words. Check your terminals. Moretti did. His face changed. While he had been attacking Adrian's decoy server, Cole allies had frozen access to 2 terminals Moretti depended on. Adrian hadn't merely survived the attack. He had used it to prove Moretti's involvement and take leverage. You planned this, Moretti whispered. Adrian's gray eyes remained calm. I planned for betrayal. Marcus laughed bitterly. All this because some woman sent the wrong text. Adrian finally looked toward the camera. Toward me. No, then back to Marcus. This is for betraying my family. A pause. She only taught me to see it. Daniel put the final trace on the table, the authentication record captured through Bell and Hart's hidden corridor. Marcus looked at me through the camera, and for the first time his certainty vanished. Without the corridor I had remembered, Adrian would have had a case. With it, he had the link Marcus could no longer explain away. The captains made their choice. Marcus lost his authority before Adrian ever ordered him removed. That was the punishment Adrian wanted most. Not rage. Exposure. Marcus was escorted away for judgment under syndicate rules. Moretti remained. Adrian offered one option: withdraw from the 2 contested terminals. End interference with coal routes. Accept a truce. Or the evidence connecting Moretti companies to the stolen shipments would reach every business partner, keeping their network alive. Moretti signed. Before midnight, Daniel received one final message from the state police liaison Adrian had quietly used to keep the civilian side of the case outside syndicate hands. Ethan Parker had been found alive in a motel outside Milwaukee under a false name. Frightened and exhausted, he had agreed to surrender the remaining Northline records and give a formal statement about Marcus's coercion and Moretti's stolen routes. He had run after realizing Marcus intended to use Claire as leverage, and the recording recovered from his backup had been his failed attempt to leave a trail without exposing her further. The news did not erase what Ethan had done to me, but it ended the worst question. He had not vanished into a grave. He would answer for his choices in daylight, somewhere far outside Adrian's private justice. By midnight, Adrian Cole had taken control of his organization again. But when the room emptied, he came to me alone. You won, I said. No, his voice was quieter now. I corrected what I should have seen sooner. I looked at him. Marcus thought I was your weakness. He was wrong. Adrian stepped closer, but didn't touch me. You aren't my weakness. Something tightened in my chest. But I made you collateral, he continued. I used your name without permission. That was mine to answer for. No excuse. No demand for forgiveness. I won't ask you to stay. That hurt more than I expected. So I left. Adrian didn't stop me. Hours later, I sat alone above Bell and Hart, staring at the conversation that had started everything. I miss you. Who gave you this number? My thumb hovered over the keyboard. This time there was no Ethan. No wrong digit. No accident. I typed 3 words. I miss you. And sent them to Adrian Cole. Are you sure you have the right number? I stared at Adrian's reply and laughed. Actually laughed. After everything, the stolen routes, Ethan's lies, Marcus's betrayal, Moretti, the night my ordinary bookstore became the center of a mafia war, Adrian Cole had made a joke. A terrible one. But still, this time I do. 3 dots appeared. Then, stay there. 20 minutes later, a black SUV stopped outside Bell and Hart. Adrian stepped out alone. No convoy. No Daniel. Just the same dark coat and controlled expression he'd worn the first night I discovered who Mr. Wrong number really was. I unlocked the door. You came. You texted. My heart betrayed me with one hard beat. Adrian entered but stopped several feet away. He didn't touch me. Didn't assume my message had erased what happened between us. That mattered. I meant what I said, he told me. I won't ask you to stay. Good. His eyes narrowed slightly. Because I have conditions. That almost smile appeared again. Of course you do. No using me as bait. Agreed. No deciding what I can handle because you think protecting me gives you that right. A pause. I can promise honesty. I can't promise you'll like every decision I make. That's not what I asked. I know. He stepped closer. I'm still the man you discovered behind that number, Claire. There it was. No fantasy. No promise that love had magically transformed Adrian Cole into someone harmless. He still controlled the syndicate. Marcus had been removed from power. Moretti had withdrawn from the contested terminals. Adrian had rebuilt his inner circle so no single advisor could access every route again. He remained cold, strategic, dangerous, but something had changed. He had learned that protecting someone wasn't the same as possessing their choices. And I'm still free to walk away? I asked. His answer came immediately. Always. That was why I stayed. Not because Adrian ruled Chicago. Because he could have closed every door around me and chose to leave mine open. 3 months later, I still managed Bell and Hart. Adrian never bought the bookstore, never paid my bills, never tried to turn my life into an extension of his empire. Sometimes, after closing, he simply sat in the chair beside the history shelves reading while I balanced receipts. The most feared man I knew had somehow become the quietest part of my evenings. His world didn't disappear. Daniel still interrupted dinners. Meetings still ended with decisions I didn't ask about. Adrian still rotated that black signet ring before making the ones that mattered. And I still twisted my mother's silver ring whenever his world frightened me. We didn't pretend darkness had become light. We learned where the boundary belonged. One Thursday night, Adrian was meeting with his captains when I looked around the empty bookstore and smiled at my phone. I typed, "I miss you." Across the city, Adrian's private phone vibrated. Every man at the table went silent. Daniel glanced at the screen, then at Adrian. Adrian stood. "We're done." Daniel checked his watch. "It's early." "I know." 25 minutes later, the SUV stopped outside my window. I locked the bookstore as Adrian approached. "You came." He looked at me. "You texted." The first time I wrote those words, I had been looking backward at a man who had already left me. The second time, I knew exactly who would read them. Adrian Cole never stopped ruling his city. But somewhere between a stolen shipment, a traitor, and 3 words never meant for him, he taught me something about mistakes. Sometimes the wrong door doesn't lead you away from your life. Sometimes it leads you toward the life you were finally brave enough to choose. The number had been wrong. The choice wasn't.